So, ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready and let's invite on stage the very first speaker of today. अब स्टेज पर आ रहे हैं एक ऐसे यंग एंटरप्रेन्योर जो लग्जरी को सिर्फ स्टाइल नहीं स्मार्ट बिजनेस बना रहे हैं. He is the founder and CEO of Culture Circle, India's leading AI-powered luxury resale platform, and I am Ahmedabad alumnus and a proud Forbes 30 under 30 achiever. नेशनल स्पॉटलाइट में आए ये शार्क टैंक के थ्रू with his cutting-edge authentication technology, SourceX, he is redefining trust in the pre-loved luxury space. With experience at Goldman Sachs and the mindset of new age founder, he represents the future of Indian entrepreneurship. आप सभी की जोरदार तालियों के साथ let's welcome on stage Mr. Devansh Jain Nawal, everyone. So to have Mr. Devansh Jain here today, it is an honor to all of us. And especially all the youngsters in the house. Can all the youngsters give me some loud cheer? Youngsters matlab dil se jawan hona, that's it. So do we have all the youngsters in the house? Amazing. So definitely all the youngsters, or we can say all the entrepreneurs who are thinking of starting a new journey, जब सोचते हैं कि हम भी कुछ कर सकते हैं. So I'm sure Mr. Devansh Jain Nawal, he is going to be an inspiration to you all. So, एक बार जोरदार तालियां हो जाएं for him, everyone.
Thank you. Check. Yeah. Hi guys. So I'm Devansh. Thank you so much for coming here this morning. Before we start, I'll just set some context about myself. I'm one of the founders of Culture Circle. Culture Circle is Asia's #1 hype-end luxury marketplace in 2 years. This month we're going to be closing at an annual run rate of over 400 crores in net sales in a single year. And for the past 2 years we've grown at over 800% year on year. We're already live in Netherlands and Spain. In the next 60 days we'll be live in UAE, Belgium and Germany. And we're currently raising around that value our company at over 2,000 crores. That's the $250 million. The reason I'm setting this context, right, is at the end of the day, it's just a 2-year-old company. So a lot of you in the audience have been doing business for a lot more than I have. You probably know a lot more about the fundamentals of building a great business than me, to be very honest, right? So I don't think I can teach you a lot of new things about business, about cash flow. And we have Mr. Sanjay Kathuria right after me who will teach you all of those things. But here's what I really want to do, right? I want to have like a really honest, open conversation today. Because I want to talk about the same things that I talked about in my TED Talk last month at IIM Lucknow. And my PR team will not let me upload that ever on the internet. The reason for that was they said I was a little too honest. And honesty in today's times is a little controversial. But what I really hope we can do for the next 15 minutes, just have a very real, unfiltered conversation. Because, you know, we all understand the importance of, say, hard work, grit, learning continuously, etc. And you can find a lot more people who are a lot more accomplished than me talk about it already on the internet. There's hundreds of talks like that. Even Mr. Sanjay Lodha right before me, right, he re-emphasized that message because it is true. But what I really hope to really achieve here is try and understand when we know all the basic fundamentals of building a business, then what's really stopping us? Because I put up a poll on Instagram at, you know, what would you guys like to hear me talk about? And these were the answers. You know, resilience, failure, grit, how do you get an idea, the initial days of starting up, all of that. And we're going to talk about this, right? Actually, not really. Because, as I said, I feel you guys already know the answers to all of this. I think yahan pe sabne, we have read enough books. We have seen enough podcasts. I'm also one of them, right? So, the question we're going to try and answer is what's really stopping you? And what's really stopping us? Okay, so can we do that? Yes? Okay, good. Okay. Perfect. So, I'm gonna try and inspire you to achieve your dreams and do the impossible today, right? Not really. What I'm gonna give you is a reality check. What it really takes to take something from the ground up, build it out in 2 years. More importantly, yesterday I was here. I think Rajas from the NEF team, he asked me, how does it feel after Shark Tank? How does it feel after all the growth? And my only answer was, it's extremely hectic, it's extremely painful. Because that's the one thing I've realized. No matter what, life is full of pain and problems, and they just continue to grow, right? So the question is it even worth it? Because Elon Musk, I really look up to him. He says failure is the default state for an entrepreneur. Starting a startup is like chewing glass and staring into the abyss. So why do we do it? And here's my question to you. Is it still worth it? Because the answer will depend on you. If you say it's worth it, then it is. And if you think it's not worth it, then it's really not worth it to you. Secondly, what we're also going to try is build out a roadmap for success. The ideal time management, team building skills, organization, how do you set a vision, mission, reality, right? Here again, during my time at IIM Ahmedabad, I was a part of the 2-year MBA program at IIM Ahmedabad. We were doing a research in collaboration with Harvard Business School. And what we were doing as a part of that research was 100 of the history's best entrepreneurs. All of them have written books, biographies, their lives are well documented. So we were like, let's try and find a pattern. Kuch to common hoga in sabke beech, right? And we sum total jitni bhi advice available hai on the internet about all of them. And when we added it, the sum total was 0. It all cancels out each other. Some people say you should do this, the other person said you should do that. Eventually it got cancelled out. But there was something common we saw. It was grit, right? As again, even Sanjay sir said, grit is just the ability to not give up, to get back up after you've been punched in the face. But there was something even more interesting, even more common than grit. And this is not an answer jo pasand aayega aapko. This is also the answer I discussed. Me and Sanjay Kathuria sir yesterday were coming from Delhi together. As a part of his work, he's had a chance to talk to over, I think, 300 successful entrepreneurs. I've been in the startup ecosystem for over 7 years now. And I asked him, sir, what do you think? What is that one common variable jo aapko lagta has made everyone successful? His answer was the same as my answer. It was, actually, it's luck. Right? So, and here's the thing. Right place, right time, and right people will actually dictate the magnitude of our success way more than any amount of hard work or perseverance that we can put in. And I understand why it's such an uncomfortable thought, to be very honest, right? Because luck is something that is outside our control. We just can't control it, right? Versus, it's good to think about hard work, perseverance, and all of these things because we can control it, right? We feel like we can give more input. So this is something that's in our control. But the honest answer really is a lot of the history's most successful entrepreneurs have been at the right place, at the right time, with the right people, gotten lucky. I have personally gotten lucky way more times than I can imagine to achieve whatever little success that I have. And it's important to recognize that, because if you don't recognize that, you're setting yourself up for failure, right? That's why, it's important that no matter what we've achieved, we be a little bit humble and realize that ultimately there are higher powers working, and if they haven't worked for us yet, we need to have faith sometimes. Okay. So if you've not picked up, what's going to follow is just going to be a series of uncomfortable truths about success, about mindset, about how unfair life can be, and why ultimately none of it really matters. Because here's the key takeaway I want to leave you with. The most dangerous lies are not what we tell us, others, but the most dangerous lies are the ones we tell ourselves, right? So I'll give you a quick example of this. Why I built Culture Circle. I was super passionate about the idea, about the market. I had great customer insights, right? And I found that gap in the market. And I did a market research and I had a thesis. Key to really make money in India, the top 1% has more than 65% of the wealth. So let's just sell to the top 1% income bracket. Now that's not good for the country, but if you're building a business that's selling to a consumer, it's in our best interest to try and target this 1% consumer. You think about it, right? And all of this is true, right? But if I really think about it and I try to not lie to myself and peel deeper, why I really built Culture Circle, it was a result of my breakup, my insecurity, my embarrassment. So I was just coming out of a breakup, right? So it was the only way to channelize my energy, 20 hours a day, that's what allowed me. Then my insecurity. I was in IIM Ahmedabad, surrounded by some of the brightest minds of the country. I had a feeling all of them are smarter than me. And all of them were preparing for placements to McKinsey, Bain, BCG, your typical investment banking, etc. I felt underprepared. So I decided, yeah, I'll just change the game. Because I can't win from these folks in the placement game, I will just drop out of placements and I'll change the game. And the third thing is embarrassment. I had another venture before Culture Circle. It was called The Healthy Company. Scaled that up to about 1 crore a month, but that wasn't the outcome that I had promised to myself, to my parents, to my friends, those around me. So I felt disappointed and embarrassed in myself. And I just wanted to maybe prove that I am not an idiot to myself, to my parents, to those around me, is why I worked so hard for Culture Circle. So this is just to demonstrate you that, we can always just try to stop lying to ourselves. Because the moment we try to do that, any message that you get here from me or the speakers after me, you will be in the right mindset to really absorb that and really start being honest to yourself. Yeah, so we're going to talk about how to not build a $250 million venture in 2 years. The reason I've highlighted not here particularly is I believe in our minds, right, if we just avoid mistakes that we commonly make, it's a much better strategy for success than just doing the right things. So that's why we're going to focus on how to not build a $250 million venture in 2 years. And there's just 3 points I want to leave you with. 1, the first mistake that I made is believing that life is fair. We need to understand, I went through all of my school, university believing life is fair. This is right, that is wrong, this is moral, that is immoral. The world is just somehow completely just and moral. And I used to complain that, this is fair, that is unfair, until I realized all of this complaining about life being fair or unfair, it does nothing. It achieves nothing. We can keep on complaining. We deserve this, but we got this, etc., etc., etc. But the world does not care. The world does not owe you anything. And I've had this realization slapped into my face a couple of times. A big part of the reason was back in 2022. I had a personal tragedy in my family wherein we felt like the entire world was against us, bad things were happening to me and my family, and all of it, I would often question myself as to, why is this happening, right? We're good people, why is all of this happening? But eventually I realized, nobody cares. Because even if people really cared, I had everyone's sympathy. I had things happen to my family that I would not wish on my worst enemy. But at the end of the day, that distracted me from my first company. That company eventually shut down. हो गया वो, बंद हो गया. Right? Now, sure, everyone can still sympathize with me. Yes, हमें समझ आता है why that happened, this, that, whatever. But at the end of the day, the customers did not care. The market did not care. The world did not care. Right? So we need to just start accepting the fact that bad stuff will happen even if you're good people. Accept that and move on. It will happen in the most unexpected of times. We can either choose to sit and suffer in it or just accept bad stuff happens and still move on. So that is the number one thing that I think number one mistake we make, that believing that life is fair. But here's the positive side of it, right? One thing I've learned is either you can happen to life or you can let life happen to you. And you happening to life is the highest form of calling that I have seen to a life well lived. Secondly, okay, now this is gonna rub a lot of people the wrong way, but being super passionate. I think this is the biggest mistake. Being super passionate about your business idea, right? Because we often get this advice that once you make your passion your work does not feel like work, right? Sabne suna hai. I feel it's terrible advice, mostly because it's untrue. The moment you make your passion your work, वो फिर work ही बन जाता है. I was 130 kilos earlier, I lost 50 kilos, and that's when I started the healthy company. It was to help people lose weight. During the 2 years I was running the healthy company, I only gained weight. Right? All of my passion about nutrition, exercise went away the moment it became my work. Even with Culture Circle, right? I was very interested. Who's not excited about, say, shoes, watches, handbags, perfumes, etc., luxury brands? Sure. But the moment I made it my work, I just cannot have any more conversation with anyone about what shoe to buy, about what watch to buy after this. Right? And these are things very easy to be passionate about. But the moment you see all the behind the scenes stuff that it takes to make your passion your work, it stops being your passion. So it's terrible advice, don't make your passion your work. Right? Which is also why when someone tells you ki, making money is somehow not the best motivation or not a good enough reason to start a startup, I think they are wrong for judging you that way. I think it is a perfectly valid, perfectly justified reason for starting a venture. Either they are lying to you or they're lying to themselves. But if you are not running a non-for-profit, please, let's be honest to ourselves. We can be passionate about it, but the ultimate goal is to make money, right? So yeah, I'll give you another example of how we do it at Culture Circle, right? The most common question I'll often get in my DMs is how do you continuously stay motivated, right? Because in our phase of business, we have to put in 18, 20-hour work days consistently. So how do you stay motivated? What I've seen work is, let's have a very clear vision of the future. Because of my actions, I want this future to exist. That future can be anything. In my dhanda, the future is, if you think about it, we make accessible, expensive and high quality products to the top 1% rich of the country. That is my business, right? Now the thing is, I'm very crystal clear about it. Yeah, ye dhanda hai mera. I can lie to myself and make the vision sound a lot more PR friendly, marketing friendly, and say that we are probably doing more for sustainability and environment than 80% of the sustainability startups in the country. Because when someone buys a 50,000 rupees ka t-shirt, they wear it for a lot longer, it's less likely to end up in a landfill. Or wo bhi sach hai, just by the way, right? We're probably doing more for sustainability and environment than most of these sustainability startups. But I should not lie to myself about what I'm building. It is perfectly okay that I'm building for the top 1% rich, and as long as I'm clear, I will stay motivated. If I start lying to myself about my motivation, मैं क्या कर रहा हूँ, क्यों कर रहा हूँ, I'm setting up myself for failure. So that is the second mistake that we often make, that we try to be super passionate, try to paint a vision of saving the world or creating impact, when really the impact is really dependent on what you want. Finally, this is also something I feel very passionately about. the third mistake we make is taking life too seriously. Right? What I've realized is, see, life is ultimately a game. Right? It is made up of a bunch of mini games that we choose to play for ourselves. So, like career, wealth, marriage, friendships, traveling. These are all mini games that we play. And what really happens is, I feel very strongly about this. If you're ambitious, if you want to do big things in life, you should not take life too seriously. And there's a reason for this. If you're too ambitious, you will naturally want to play higher games in life. The stakes will be higher, correct? And the nature of life is, it's cyclical, kabhi upar, kabhi niche. So the higher you try to rise, the steeper you will fall, right? And if you take life too seriously, you get too attached to the outcome. Not your input, not your action, but the outcome. How was my last quarter? How was my last year? How was my last day? You get too attached, right? And when you get too attached to either success or failure, you make it really hard for yourself to get back up, to adapt when you fall down. Because you will eventually fall down. At the core of it, I know that whatever I have built, it can go away in an instant. Right? And this gives you a very strategic advantage, I've realized, taking life not too seriously. I get this question a lot. If some of you have seen my Shark Tank pitch, it was very intense. You were getting bombarded with questions. There was intense negotiation. Often, even in day-to-day business negotiations, right, with any partner. I know when I'm a part of the negotiation, I will give it my all to get the best outcome for myself and my company. But I know the moment the negotiation is over, I'm a little detached with the end result. And by doing that, you actually become a very good negotiator, is what I've realized. I'll give you a very simple example. This funding round that we were raising, initially, the valuation that was being set for a funding round was being closer to $100 to $150 million, right? We ended up at $250 million. That's 800 crores of value created over 2 months of negotiation. Why was that made possible? It was made possible because at the end of the day, whenever I would sit down at the negotiating table, I would be detached with the end result. And because my emotions were not a part of the negotiation, because I know eventually none of this matters, I could actually become a much better negotiator. So I think taking life too seriously can make you an overall worse negotiator. The optimal mindset, I've realized, is how you play video games, right? Or in school, how you had basketball matches or football matches. I feel that's the optimal mindset for life. When you're inside the game, we will do our best to win the game. But once the game is over, once the PT period is over, once we shut off the video game, we are okay. Kaisa bhi gaya game. Win or lose, we move on to the next day. I think that is the optimal mindset jo hona chahiye life ke liye. You are making yourself less miserable also that way. You are not bogged down with success or failure too much. So yeah, because ultimately we think about it, right? If I ask you, who was the richest person 300 years ago or 200 years ago? It's not Rockefeller, that was 50 years ago. Who would it be? Nobody knows. Who was the most successful person 400 or 500 years ago? Nobody knows. तो जब eventually matter नहीं करेगा 200, 300, 400 साल बाद, why get bogged down so much right now with the end result? So yeah, if you think about it, I've tried to demonstrate it. This talk is also mini game. It had its rules, regulations, time limit, outcomes that I wanted you to take away with. And when I was in the game, I tried my best to deliver the message. But now that this talk is going to be over, I'm not going to take the outcome too seriously. I hope I delivered. But now that it's over, it's over. Right? Because life is too short. So let's make a dent while we are here. But at the same time, let's lighten up, laugh at yourself. None of us really know what we are doing, right? Because if you think about it, if you zoom out, the earth also does not matter. We are just slightly evolved monkeys on a blue rock revolving around one of the millions of fireballs in the cosmos. So thank you for coming. Thanks. Yeah.
Alright, thank you so much, Devansh. I must say, what an inspiring speech. एक बार जोरदार तालियां हो जाए everyone. And I'm sure each and every one of you are having so many questions for him. So on behalf of you all, we have Sanjay Lodha sir here, and he'll be asking some questions to you. Sir, off to you.
Thank you. Wow, what a story, amazing. You can hear me, right? Yes. So, Culture Circle, how does the name come up? I couldn't sleep last night. I was thinking, what does it mean? How did you come up with the name?
Very simple. We're selling limited edition hyper luxury products, right?
Okay.
So when you say this, either you're a part of the culture or you're not a part of the culture. So either you're cool or you're uncool.
Okay.
So if you're cool, you're cultured. If you're not cool, you're uncultured. That's how we like to in-group versus out-group. Because why are people buying expensive things? It's to signal. Why do people buy a Rolex or a Rolls Royce? It's to signal that they've arrived, they're successful. So we said, okay, when everyone in the world is only signaling at the end of the day, right? Let's make a platform that helps you signal that you're cool.
One of your failures you can talk about, and how did you fix it?
Sure. So I think one of my consistent failures has been underestimating the importance of hiring. Because we come in from the mindset कि यार इतना ही अभी business में profit है, let's try and maximize profit. So I never invested in team building. I think that was a very big part of the reason why my first venture also failed. You can never overpay for good talent. That's the one thing I've realized. And one A+ player is better than 6 A players. So if you find that one A+ player, pay them whatever it takes, get them on your team. So I think that was one of the things I used to make a mistake consistently.
If anybody in the audience has a question, we'll take one question. Also acknowledge, these are your parents, right?
Yes.
आप खड़े हो सकते तो we'll acknowledge and give them a round of applause. I think they both are doctors from what I know. And good to have you in Nasik. Enjoy the Nasik. Does anybody have a question in the audience? Or I can ask you one thing. So you're building this brand and amazing growth. जो 2 साल में काम किया, people take lifetimes, right? So what is one non-negotiable thing that you have in building your brand? That hey, absolutely, ये चीज़ मैं करने वाला ही नहीं हूँ.
So I think the only non-negotiable that we are very stuck true to is we will prioritize customer value over company profit in the short term, always.
Wow.
Because for us, it's all about building repeat customers, right? And for any business, I feel. We often take decisions which will maximize a short-term profit, but minimize customer value. And वो customer will not mind. मतलब वो एक transaction में ठीक है. वो customer लेगा ठीक है, this is what you get. But if you try and under-promise and over-deliver, वो customer इतनी बार वापस आने वाला है. You cannot put a life, you cannot put a value to that. You were probably an Amazon customer 14 years ago. You're still an Amazon customer. Because Amazon has delivered that value to you.
But under-promise and over-deliver doesn't work anywhere in the world. I work around the globe, 100 countries, and under-promise, over-deliver never works. The first step you do in successful business is build the trust. And that trust drives the sustainable business, which he has done very well. So, Devansh, you are still very young, and so the question is still, when you were 21, I'm not sure how old you are now. I know you're still bachelor, most sought after bachelor that I know. So the things that you did at 21 that you wouldn't do now, assumptions then and now. I know I saw a lot of things, but जो 21 साल में करते थे जो अभी नहीं करोगे.
I think 21 साल में I would take a lot more risks that I wouldn't anymore. I think yesterday a lot of the volunteers of NEF are very young, final year college students. I was talking to them at length. And they also asked me for advice, what would you say to a 21-year-old? My only advice was, you have time for 50 failures right now. And still nobody would care. You have zero responsibilities. So I think I would take a lot more risks at 21 that I would not do right now.
Okay. Good, and the last question is your business model for the culture circle over the next 5 years. What would you do? Now you set the baseline, you've grown up, you've gone to quite a few countries. So अगले 5 साल में या 7 साल में, besides being getting married, that's what your parents told me. बराबर ना? So we also do the matrimonials, by the way. What would you do differently, and what is the learning for the audience from that particular part?
So, I think from a more tactical standpoint, coming to business models, I think we should all try and move towards business models that minimize capital risk. What I mean by that is dead inventory, for example, right? High working capital cycle. हम आज product बना रहे हैं, but the buyer is paying us in 3 months, 6 months, etc. So a couple of things we did right with Kajasur from a business model standpoint that I feel worked well in our favor. हमें customer से आज पैसा आता है. If you transact with us online or in store, हमें आज पैसा आता है. हम अपने vendor को 20 दिन बाद पैसे देते हैं. सारी जो inventory है, because it's a marketplace, vendor की है. अगर कुछ नहीं बिका, वो risk भी vendor का है. Our margins are lower typically, right? We don't operate at 50-60% margin. We operate at 25% margin. तो we will take that trade-off कि हम lower margin पे operate कर लेंगे, but inventory risk zero. Working capital cycle हमारा negative है. We always have cash in the bank, and because having that extra cash in the bank, if I'm doing say 30 crores in a month और मेरा working capital cycle 20 day है, I have 20 crores that I can spend for marketing, for other expenses, and इतने में the next customer pays me, right? So I would say be okay taking a hit on margins, but negotiate much better terms for working capital, for inventory risk, demand forecasting, all of that.
Absolutely. So one big learning for all of you is manage your cash flow, because most people would fail in their life or their businesses because they are not managing the cash flow. That's simply spending way too much money, making too many changes, too many resources. But what he said is that discipline of knowing where you stand on your business in terms of cash flow. And that applies to anybody who does 5 lakh rupees business or 500 crores business. And so cash flow part is very important. With that, I would like to really thank Devansh coming all the way with his parents from Delhi, an incredible story.
So जोरदार तालियां बजाएं once again everyone.